A DEA agent, a guy who dedicated his entire life to fighting the cartels, gets kidnapped, tortured, and murdered in Mexico. And the United States government, the same government he worked for, knew who did it. They had names, they had proof, and they buried it. Because the people responsible, they were on the CIA's payroll. I know how that sounds. I know. But stay with me, because this isn't a conspiracy theory. This is documented. This is real. And by the time I'm done walking you through everything, you're going to understand exactly how deep this goes, and exactly why almost nobody in power ever paid for it. This is the story of Kiki Camarena. Now, before we get into the man himself, you need to understand the world he was operating in. We're talking about Mexico in the early 1980s. The drug trade wasn't just growing, it was exploding. Cocaine, marijuana, heroin, moving across the border in volumes that the DEA had never seen before. And sitting right at the center of all of it was the Guadalajara Cartel, one of the most powerful criminal organizations on the planet at the time. Run by a man named Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, backed by a network of corrupt politicians, dirty cops, and, as it would eventually come out, American intelligence. That's the world Kiki Camarena walked into when he was assigned to Guadalajara. And here's the thing about Kiki. He wasn't some desk agent. He wasn't playing it safe. He was out there on the ground, building informant networks, documenting cartel operations, piecing together the full picture of how the Guadalajara Cartel was running its empire. He was closing in on something massive. A marijuana plantation called El Buffalo, one of the biggest drug operations ever discovered in Mexican history. Kiki found it. His intelligence found it. And when Mexican authorities raided it, the cartel lost hundreds of millions of dollars overnight. They knew it was him. On February 7, 1984, Kiki Camarena left the U.S. consulate in Guadalajara to meet his wife for lunch. And he never made it. He was grabbed off the street in broad daylight by a group of men, forced into a car, and taken to a house in the city. What happened to him over the next 30 hours? I'm not going to get into every detail because this isn't that kind of channel, but he was tortured extensively. He was kept alive while they interrogated him, while they tried to extract every piece of information he had, and then he was killed. His body was found a month later, wrapped in plastic, dumped in a field. Now here's where the story stops being just tragic and starts being something else entirely. The investigation into Kiki's murder pointed very quickly to the top of the Guadalajara Cartel, specifically to a man named Rafael Caro Quintero and to Felix Gallardo, but it also pointed somewhere that the U.S. government was desperate to keep quiet. Evidence came out suggesting that the CIA had a working relationship with elements of the Guadalajara Cartel. Not accidental, not incidental, a deliberate operational relationship. The theory, and again, this is backed by congressional testimony and declassified documents, is that the cartel was being used as a conduit to funnel money and resources to the Contras in Nicaragua. This was during the Iran-Contra era. The CIA needed off-the-books funding channels, and the cartel provided them. Kiki Camarena, in the process of doing his job, was pulling on threads that led directly to that operation, and there are people who believe, and have testified under oath, that elements within the U.S. intelligence community not only knew the murder was going to happen, but may have actively helped cover it up afterward. The DEA knew. Some members of Congress knew, and yet the full truth was never prosecuted. The men at the very top of the American connections, the ones who potentially had government protection, they never faced justice in any meaningful way. Rafael Caro Quintero was eventually convicted in Mexico, served 20 legal technicality, and is currently on the FBI's most wanted list. Felix Gallardo ran his empire from prison for years, and the CIA's role officially denied, quietly acknowledged in certain declassified files, and then buried again. Kiki Camarena's wife and kids buried him. His colleagues watched the people responsible walk, and the U.S. government closed ranks. That's what this story is about. Not just the murder, the cover-up, the institutional protection, the way power protects itself, even when one of its own agents is the victim. Even when the victim is a man who is doing exactly what he was supposed to do. I'm going to walk you through all of it. The cartel structure, the CIA connection, the investigation, the political pressure, all of it. Because this story deserves to be told straight. And it starts in Mexicali, with a kid who grew up to become one of the most respected undercover agents in DEA history. Let's get into it.